Hey everyone! Welcome to The Young and the Restless. I'm Jane, and I'm so excited to have you here. If you love Young and the Restless, then you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Alright, let's dive right in. According to The Young and the Restless spoilers for the week of August 4th to 8th, Claire Newman retaliates, Jack Abbott Mole's doing a favor for Nikki Newman, and Adam Newman's error will haunt him. First, Claire will lose it over Victor Newman's relentless attempts to destroy their relationship and his treatment of Kyle Abbott like trash. Nikki will chastise her husband for his actions after Victor pushes Claire too far and pushes her away. Expect Nikki to approach Jack with a request as well, and he will determine whether or not he is willing to help her, possibly in a way that could impact his conflict with Victor. Kane Ashby will acknowledge that he is targeting Jabot as part of all his ambitious ambitions for Genoa City, forcing Billy Abbott to make a tough choice of his own. Is Billy able to accept that and oppose his own family business? Along the way, Phyllis Summers will make fun of Billy and promise Kane that, if he allows it, she will always be his faithful right-hand lady. Adam will receive a scolding for failing to publish the Billy attack pieces that Victor insisted on, according to YNR teasers. Even though Adam did the right thing by ascending the mountain to alert his family about Kane's real estate grab in GC, Victor won't be amenable to him disobeying orders. Victor will remind Adam that he wants his instructions to be followed. Adam might be forced to attack Billy in the media because he will be under more pressure to do so, and Chelsea Lawson would have to accept that. Victor will later fire Audra Charles, and Kyle will give Claire his version of events and nice. Claire will approach Audra for a confrontation as soon as she learns that Victor has hired her to woo Kyle and ruin their romance. At some point, Claire and Kyle will visit Adam's office with a proposition to present. If Adam's former condo is still available, this might involve moving in, but will Adam be prepared to defy Victor and come to a compromise? He'll argue angrily with Jill Abbott once he's back with Billy. Jill and Billy will continue to snap at one another because it's obvious that their tension hasn't decreased. Lastly, Lily Winters will be pressured by Victor to participate in his Kane retribution plan. Will Lily agree to Victor's plan as he will make a bargain with someone, or might Victor find an ally against Kane? According to spoilers for The Young and the Restless, Kane and Victor's feud will result in a lot of unexpected developments in GC, so tune in. Billy had always prided himself on being a shrewd businessman, someone who could read a room, sense deception, and outmaneuver any competitor with ease. He had built his empire from the ground up, relying on instinct, intelligence, and an unshakable belief that loyalty was everything in both business and personal relationships. So when he discovered that Jill, his longtime business partner and confidant, had given Kane, his fiercest rival, a secret deal behind his back, something inside him snapped. It wasn't just the betrayal itself, though that was bad enough, it was the sheer audacity of it, the way Jill had looked him in the eye day after day, pretending everything was fine while she was cutting deals with the one person he despised above all others. The moment he found out, it was as if the world around him blurred, his vision tunneling into a red haze of fury. He had trusted her implicitly, defended her when others questioned her motives, and even turned a blind eye to some of her more questionable decisions in the past because he believed in their partnership. But this? This was unforgivable. The details of the deal were bad enough: favorable terms, exclusive access to resources Billy had fought tooth and nail to secure, and worst of all, a clause that effectively locked him out of future negotiations. It was a masterstroke of manipulation, one that would give Kane an undeniable advantage in their ongoing battle for dominance in the industry. But what truly sent Billy spiraling was the realization that Jill must have been planning this for months. The paperwork, the back-channel communications, the careful timing, it all pointed to a level of premeditation that made his stomach churn. Had she been laughing at him this whole time? Had every conversation, every strategy session, been nothing more than a charade to keep him in the dark while she orchestrated his downfall? The thought made his hands shake with a mixture of rage and disbelief. He had always considered himself a good judge of character, but Jill had played him perfectly, and that humiliation cut deeper than any financial loss ever could. He stormed through the office, ignoring the startled looks from employees who had never seen him so unhinged. Papers flew off desks as he shoved past, his voice rising to a roar as he demanded answers from anyone who might have known. Some tried to calm him down, others backed away in fear, but Billy was beyond reason. He needed to confront Jill, to look her in the eye and make her admit what she had done. When he finally found her in the boardroom, coolly sipping her coffee as if it were just another day, something inside him broke. The words poured out of him in a torrent of accusations, his voice cracking with raw emotion as he laid out every piece of evidence, every damning detail that proved her treachery. Jill, to her credit, didn't flinch. She met his fury with icy composure, her expression unreadable as she listened to his tirade. And when he finally paused, chest heaving, waiting for her to deny it, to offer some explanation that would make sense of her betrayal, she simply shrugged and said, "Business is business, Billy. You of all people should understand that." That was the moment Billy lost it completely. The calmness in her voice, the dismissive way she brushed off his anger as if it were nothing more than an inconvenience, ignited a fire in him that he couldn't control. He lunged forward, overturning the conference table with a crash that echoed through the building. Glasses shattered, chairs toppled, and Jill barely had time to step back before Billy was in her face, his finger jabbing into her chest as he spat venomous words he would later regret. Security rushed in, pulling him away as he struggled against them, his shouts fading into incoherent rage. But even as they dragged him out of the room, even as the reality of what had just happened began to sink in, one thought burned brighter than all the others: Jill had crossed a line, and there would be consequences. In the days that followed, Billy's anger hardened into something colder, more calculated. He stopped yelling, stopped throwing things, but the fire inside him hadn't dimmed, it had simply found a new focus. He began digging, pulling apart every contract, every email, every financial record he could get his hands on, determined to uncover every secret Jill had ever kept from him. And the more he found, the more he realized how deep the deception went. It wasn't just the deal with Kane, there were side agreements, hidden clauses, even whispers of a planned merger that would have left Billy with nothing. The betrayal was so vast, so meticulously planned, that it took his breath away. But instead of breaking him, it fueled him. He started reaching out to old allies, calling in favors, and quietly building a case that would destroy Jill just as thoroughly as she had tried to destroy him. The office became a war zone, though the battles were fought in whispers and legal documents rather than shouted arguments. Employees took sides, some loyal to Billy, others swayed by Jill's promises of power and stability. The tension was palpable, a thick fog of distress that made every meeting, every conversation, feel like a potential ambush. But Billy thrived in it. For the first time in years, he felt alive, driven by a singular purpose: to take back what was his and make Jill pay for what she had done. He stopped sleeping, stopped caring about anything but the fight ahead. His once sharp suits became rumpled, his eyes bloodshot from late nights spent poring over documents, but he didn't care. The man who had once prided himself on his control, his ability to stay 3 steps ahead, had become something else entirely, a force of pure, unrelenting vengeance. And then, just when it seemed like the conflict would tear the company apart, Billy made his move. He called an emergency board meeting, presenting evidence so damning that even Jill's staunchest supporters couldn't ignore it. Emails, recorded conversations, financial discrepancies, all laid out with surgical precision. The room fell silent as the weight of his findings sank in. Jill's mask of confidence slipped for the first time, her face paling as she realized the trap had been sprung. The vote was unanimous: she was out. Stripped of her position, her authority, everything. As she stood to leave, her usual poise shattered, Billy finally allowed himself a small, cold smile. She had underestimated him, assumed his anger would make him reckless, but she had been wrong. He had turned his rage into a weapon, and now she was the one bleeding. But as he watched her walk away, the satisfaction he expected didn't come. Instead, there was a hollow feeling, a gnawing sense that no matter how much he won, something had been lost that could never be recovered. The trust, the partnership, the years of shared history, all gone, reduced to ashes in the wake of her betrayal. The office felt emptier somehow, the victory bittersweet. Billy sat alone in the boardroom long after everyone had left, staring at the wreckage of what had once been a thriving partnership. He had gotten what he wanted. Jill was finished. Kane's advantage had been neutralized. But as the adrenaline faded, he was left with a single, inescapable truth. In his quest for vengeance, he had become something he no longer recognized. The man who had once valued loyalty above all else had become just as ruthless as those who had betrayed him. And that, perhaps, was the greatest loss of all. Billy had always suspected that his mother was keeping secrets. She always had a flair for control, for pulling strings behind closed doors, for maneuvering the people she loved as if they were chess pieces on a board she alone understood, but nothing prepared him for the magnitude of the betrayal he uncovered when he overheard a whispered conversation between Jill and Kane in the Chancellor Estate's sunroom, a conversation that shattered what little trust he had left in both of them. He had only come over to drop off some paperwork from the board, just some merger memos from Devon's team that had been sitting on his desk too long, but when he heard Kane's voice, quiet, secretive, smug, he stopped mid-step in the hallway, curiosity rising like smoke, and leaned closer to the slightly cracked French door just in time to hear Kane say, "Thank you, Jill, I won't let you down. No one even knows about this account, and with your backing, I can make the pivot without Billy or Devon finding out until it's too late," and Jill's cool reply, "Good." Billy's too hot-headed, Kane. He'd ruin this before it got off the ground. Let me worry about him. You focus on your next move. The words sliced through Billy like knives, and for a moment he stood frozen, trying to process what he had just heard, his fingers trembling as they gripped the file folder that suddenly felt like a ton of bricks, everything tilted, the walls around him closing in. His mother had made a secret deal with Kane, the man Billy had fought to keep out of Chancellor Winter's time and time again, the man who had schemed, lied, and nearly destroyed Lily with his games, and now Jill was not only trusting him but funding him behind everyone's backs. Billy couldn't stop the rage that surged through his chest as he burst into the room, startling them both, Kane quickly rising from the sofa, face stiffening as he took one step back, and Jill immediately stepping in, voice calm but firm, "Billy, let me explain," but he wouldn't hear it. The fury in his eyes burned hot, old wounds reopened as he pointed an accusing finger at Kane. "You sneaky little bastard. You think you can slither your way back into this company using my mother as your shield?" And Kane, ever the manipulator, raised his hands defensively, that fake calm he wore like armor slipping only slightly as he replied, "It's not what you think. This is a smart move, Billy. Jill believes in this because it makes business sense," but Billy wouldn't let him finish, his voice cracking under the weight of betrayal. "You think I give a damn about your business sense? After everything you've done? After you nearly ran Chancellor into the ground once already? Jill, how could you? How could you go behind my back like this, again?" And Jill, ever composed, replied, "Because you let your emotions run the company, Billy, and I won't sit back and watch you sabotage every opportunity out of spite." Kane came to me with a viable proposal, and I made an executive decision, but Billy shook his head, pacing now, running a hand through his hair. "You mean you decided that I don't matter, that I can be cut out, again? Like always, just like when you gave Kane that ridiculous promotion in Australia without consulting me, just like when you backed him after he faked those acquisition papers. Do you ever stop and think maybe I'm right about him?" And Kane, growing more defiant now, snapped, "This isn't about the past, Billy, and your vendetta against me is getting old. Maybe the real problem is you can't stand that someone else has a plan that actually works." And before Jill could intervene again, Billy crossed the room and got inches from Kane's face, his jaw clenched so tightly his voice came out like a growl, "You ever go behind my back again, and I swear, you'll regret it. I will torch every deal you've touched. I will make sure the board sees you for the snake you are." And Jill, now raising her voice for the first time, stepped between them, her expression sharp. "That's enough. Both of you. This isn't helping anything, Billy. I did what I felt was best for the company. You don't have to like it, but you will respect it," and Billy laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "Respect? You want respect? How about you start by not making backroom deals with the man who tried to steal Lily's life from under her? How about that for respect?" He turned on his heel, storming out of the room before either of them could say another word. His heart pounding so loud he could barely think, the echo of that betrayal following him all the way back to his car, and by the time he slammed the door and started the engine, his mind was already racing with how he would fight back, not just against Kane, but against Jill too, because if they thought they could cut him out of his legacy, if they thought they could erase him from the very company he bled for, they were about to find out just how ruthless Billy Abbott could be. He didn't sleep. That night, pacing the floor of his condo, staring out the window at the city lights, replaying every conversation, every warning sign he'd ignored, how Jill had suddenly stopped CCing him on those international memos, how Kane had been spotted at that investor lunch last week with Nikki and Nate, how his own ideas had been dismissed in meetings with vague promises to circle back, it all made sense now. And the more he connected the dots, the more it consumed him, not just anger but hurt, the kind of deep, gut-wrenching hurt that only comes when family stabs you in the back. The next morning he walked into the Chancellor Winter's boardroom early, hours before anyone else arrived, pulled the blinds, and began digging, pulling files, tracing emails, uncovering a paper trail that led to a shadow LLC Jill had quietly authorized months ago, one that had been routing funds through an international subsidiary to fuel Kane's startup, and with every confirmation, his jaw tightened further, his knuckles turning white from gripping the mouse, until finally he closed the laptop and whispered to himself, "She really did it, she chose him over me," and something inside him shifted. He wasn't going to sit by and be sidelined, not this time, not ever again, and by the time Jill walked in that afternoon for the board meeting, wearing her usual silk blouse and pearls, calm as ever, Billy was waiting for her with printed spreadsheets in hand and fire in his eyes. She tried to speak, but he slid the papers across the table and simply said, "Read them. Then tell me I'm overreacting," and as Jill scanned the documents, her expression changed, not quite guilt, not quite regret, but an acknowledgement that she had underestimated him again, and when she finally looked up and said, "Billy, this doesn't have to be a war," he replied coldly, "It already is," and walked out, leaving her in silence, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel like the wounded son begging for approval. He felt like the man who was finally taking his power back, no matter what it cost.